Hello everyone, my name is DJ and welcome to Forever and Always, I'm always here, my Baywatch podcast. I have never seen any episodes of Baywatch until I found a little YouTube channel called Movie Nights run by a hilarious woman named Allison, who does a series called Baywatching, where she watches every episode of Baywatch. Well, one of my favorite streaming services that I subscribe to, Hulu, has put all 11 restored HD remastered seasons of the original Baywatch. So if you're just subscribed to Hulu, you should check it out. I decided to make a video podcast, meaning this is going to be on YouTube, not on any of the podcast forms, because I don't know how to do that. Because I've never actually seen any of the episodes, just the clips that Allison put in her videos, and I'm not trying to upstage her or do anything better. I think her series is so fantastic, and you should check it out and compare it to mine. I plan to watch every single episode of Baywatch, just like she has committed to doing, and doing a podcast where I analyze it and tell you everything that happens, just like they do on all the other podcasts about different shows. And surprisingly, there's not a lot for this, which I assume that there's going to be now. So spoilers throughout this video if you've never seen the pilot movie for Baywatch. Baywatch premiered almost 30 years ago in the year I was born, 1989. Yes, I'm going to be 30 this year, and no, I'm not very thrilled about it. Sometimes I am, and other times I'm not. But hey, age is just a number, right? Way back when television was good, they would do a pilot movie, which was a way to introduce a series. Such shows as Little House on the Prairie, The Waltons, and Quantum Leap did this. And if the movie got enough viewers, then it became a series. And if it didn't, then they could just write it off as a TV movie. If you don't know what a TV movie is, kids, either Google it or ask your parents. Because believe me, TV movies of the week were the most coolest thing ever when I was a kid. Anyway, let's dive into the crazy world that is Baywatch. In the pilot movie, Panic at Malibu Pier. We start off with Mitch, played by David Hasselhoff, who you may know from such things as Knight Rider, or for those of you nowadays, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Yaha. Stars as Mitch Buchanan, and we're also introduced to his son, Hobie. No, it's actually Hobie, not Hoagie. Hobie. And lifeguard Jill. They're having a paddleboat race, and Mitch loses. And Jill calls him fat, and says that he won't make a very good lieutenant. Okay, good start. After this, Hoagie informs his dad that some girl said, "Oh, Hobie, will you please rub suntan lotion on my back?" And Mitch goes, "What did you say?" And Hobie says, I told her that I couldn't because I didn't want to get my hands dirty." "Why'd you do that?" Mitch, what exactly are you trying to do here?" "Your kid is supposed to be 14, he says. So, way too young to be going for the gold there, as they say." Anyway, Mitch says the next time, just do it. What's the worst that can happen? And then Hobie says, "Well, what if she asks me to put lotion on her front?" Dun dun dun! Yeah, okay. So then we're introduced to Craig, or who I would like to call Death Glare, because he has piercing eyes. Eyes that go deep into your soul, and you really wish they would cut away and stop showing them. He is a lawyer by day as well as a lifeguard, and he hasn't been a lifeguard for a whole month, and decides on this particular day he's gonna be a lifeguard. Because How can you choose between getting money and going to school for years to study to be a lawyer versus being a lifeguard? Okay, seems like an obvious choice. He's going to be a lifeguard. So he tells his wife Gina, if anybody wants to reach me, I'll be at Malibu Pier. We're then introduced to a random girl in a what looks as if a parachute shirt, riding her bike down a street. The camera zooms in on her smiling face multiple times, and when she rides her bike, when there's a red light, she almost gets hit by a car, and this doesn't seem to faze her at all. She goes to the pier, and she takes out a letter that says, "Dear Daddy," and I couldn't see the rest. And she sets it on fire and throws it under the pier. Over the pier and into the ocean. Meanwhile, Craig is making his rounds in the truck and comes across Carl, a soon-to-be retired lifeguard that has taught Mitch everything he knows. He's jogging on the beach, and Craig offers him a ride back to headquarters, and he says no, I gotta keep the old juices flowing. So Craig continues his rounds and somehow gets stuck under the pier. Water is hitting his truck and he's radioing for help. How did he get under the pier, you ask? I have no freaking idea. So at that specific moment, the random girl decides to balance beam herself on the pier and falls over. Good thing Craig just so happened to be there to save her. Oh, and her blouse shirt thing is a flotation device. It reminded me of that scene in a Goofy movie where that happens to Max. And it like blows up and he's... Well, you know what I'm talking about, 90s kids. For those of you who don't, Google it. Anyway, Craig manages to save her, and when she opens her eyes, she's surprised to find a good-looking lifeguard has saved her life, and she immediately falls in love with him. He takes her back to headquarters where Mitch is having a speech about his new job as lieutenant. He's not going to tell anybody how to do their job. He just doesn't want them to make him look bad. I'm sure every boss, has that ambition. After all the random extras go and they decide to plan a party around Save the Bay as well as Mitch's promotion party, passing out flyers, Mitch calls Jill and Shawnee and Eddie, who we met a little bit early in the episode that I forgot to mention. Basically, Eddie is a kid who was in foster care. More on that later. And Shawnee doesn't understand how she got in. And really, after you hear the episode or watch the episode, you'll be wondering how she became a lifeguard too. Anyway, she's upset with Mitch because she's not going to be assigned to Lifeguard Tower 27. She is going to actually be assigned with Jill in a boat. And she's upset because her friends were waiting for her there. Mitch goes, "You're working, you're not here to hang out." Ooh. Meanwhile, there's a lost kid, and Eddie helps him find his mom. The kid is 6 years old and his name is Peter. And he says to little Peter, he says, "By the time I was 6 years old, I had 3 moms and 3 dads. And Peter goes, "How?" And he goes, "Let's just say my name was Foster." And oh my goodness, who knew that the writers of Baywatch had foreshadowed the show The Fosters that would premiere on ABC Family over 20 years later? Amazing. Okay, all kidding aside. Why Eddie even has this conversation with this poor little child is beyond me. The fact that he doesn't seem to understand doesn't even seem to faze Eddie at all. And also, if Eddie's trying to help this kid find his mom, why does he put him in the chair and face him towards the tower and not towards the beach so the kid can actually see his mom? It makes absolutely no sense. But eventually the kid finds his mom, and there's a riptide. But before that, we're introduced to Captain Thorpe, who tells Mitch that Carl, who needs to retire, is not a good lifeguard and needs to be taken off of the beach and just put in the office to do things before he can retire. Mitch doesn't want to do that because Carl taught him everything he knows, and he doesn't want to let him go. But Captain Thorpe puts his foot down and says, "You need to tell him what I said." After that, Jill gets upset that she was partnered with Shawnee, and during her discussion, a new lifeguard named Trevor climbs up a pole, introduces himself, saying, "I'm from Australia, mate. I'm so famous there that my face is on cereal boxes." And Mitch goes, "I'll eat cereal." But Jill isn't fascinated with him from the moment she meets him, I guess. And he says, "I'm training up the other lifeguard stand, so keep your lifeguards out of my face. Okay, mate?" And then he jumps off of the balcony where Mitch's office is. And then he jumps off the balcony where Mitch's office is and does a flip in the air, which I guess is to signify that he's an asshole? I don't really know. So then there's a riptide, and all the lifeguards have to help. There are helicopters, there are boats, there are everything to basically say, "Hey, this is serious," even though it's not. They literally show in the aerial shots people in the shallow end of the ocean swimming as if nothing is going on. Good editing there. So everyone is running in the water except for Carl, who for some reason starts running towards the water and then abruptly for some odd reason stops and decides not to go in. Mitch ends up going in instead. He tells Trevor to save two men from drowning, but Trevor notices a woman swimming by herself and decides to go save her instead. In Allison's Baywatching video, there's a scene where Craig tries to romance this woman, but for some reason in the HD restoring, that's cut out. Also, for those of you straight men out there that was hoping you'd get to see the famous nude scene in the pilot movie that you've heard about over the years, you won't see it in this one. It's not there, which is fine by me. Anyway, there's this random woman who is in the water with her daughter, holding her close to her face. But then she lets her go and she almost drowns, and for some odd reason, Shawnee just stands there crying. The woman goes, "Please, do something, save my daughter." And Shawnee's all like, I don't know what to do." Good thing Jill was there. The girl ends up living, and Mitch basically reprimands Trevor by saying, "The next time you step out of line, you're going to have a problem with me, mate." But even though if this was real life, he would be totally and completely fired, has nothing to do with it. And I really apologize if you can hear my fish tank. I can't help it. Anyway, after this exchange, Hobie has basically skipped summer school, and in case you were wondering if he would ever get to rub oil on a girl's back, because of course you were, he comes across Kaylee Martin, who you may know from such films as the Mystery Woman series, as well as several TV movies of the week in the 90s, especially the cult classic Death of a Teenager with Tori Spelling, not the recent one that Lifetime remade, although she did play the mother in that one. Anyway, she plays the girl that Hobie takes her bathing cap off, and he puts oil on her, but he ends up getting it all over his pants. But have no fear, because Brian Austin Green comes to save the day. Ah yes, Brian Austin Green from Beverly Hills 90210. Coincidentally, Beverly Hills 90210's pilot and Baywatch's pilot was filmed the same exact year. The only difference being that Beverly Hills 90210's pilot didn't actually air to the public until October of 1990. Brian Austin Green character and Haley Martin's character have no names, and we don't know what happens to them after he rubs oil on her. After Brian Austin Green rubs oil on her, he ended up playing the role of David Silver on Beverly Hills 90210. And believe me, he did not get the girls a lot, because he kind of played a nerd. He was in love with Donna Martin, but he didn't get to have sex with her for a long time. Anyway, Hobie's mom, played by Wendy Malick, comes to tell Mitch that Hobie did not make it to summer school and that he's somewhere on the beach. They argue that the beach is the wrong environment for Hobie, and she wants to take him back to Ohio to live with her, because at least if he's with her, he'll do his homework and he'll actually be able to pass school, versus being on the beach where he'll always want to go off and be with his dad, who's a lifeguard. They have her dressed in some weird clothes. She's wearing like this weird checkered blazer with lots and lots of shoulder pads. You may know Wendy Malick from such funny, hilarious shows as Just Shoot Me and Hot in Cleveland with Betty White, Valerie Bertinelli, and Jane Leaves on TV Land. Fantastic show. I miss it. Anyway, we don't know if this is ever resolved because this is the last time we see her in the pilot movie. Also, meanwhile, did you forget about Lori? Yeah, I did too. Lori ends up coming to and tells everybody that her name is Lori, obviously, because I'm referring to her as Lori, that's her name. And she ends up putting on Craig's sweatshirt, and she says, "Is this his? Is this the guy that saves me sweatshirt? Oh, so nice." She ends up going through his bag and finding a key, but she has no idea where the key goes to, but she takes it anyway. Craig comes in, and when he tries to get her information, she doesn't want to tell him, but eventually she gives him her address. But she doesn't want him to call her parents. Later on, during the day, a woman cuts her foot, and Craig helps her with like first aid, and she sits there laughing and goes to her car to get her shoes. Lori observes all this and decides to key her car because she thinks that Craig is her property now because he saved her. As the description says on Hulu, Craig ends up saving a girl and ends up getting stuck in a fatal attraction situation, and his wife is now in danger. But anyway, after keying this woman's car, she goes and gets some champagne and strips naked and waits for Craig in his lifeguard tower, and he comes in and has like not even a reaction that she's even there, but she hands him champagne, he takes it, then takes hers and says, "There's no alcohol allowed on the beach." So even though a sensible person would call the cops or anything of that nature, decides to hold up his wedding ring and say, "I'm married, I don't really want to flirt with you or do anything with you." And she doesn't really care. She drops her robe and is naked. A random lifeguard, who we don't see in the next episode, randomly pulls up and sees this, and Craig's all like, "It's not what it looks like, it's just survivor's remorse, I got this. You go back to headquarters, I'll take care of it." But when the lifeguard drives away, and Craig looks back, Lori has ran away. Meanwhile, Mitch goes to Carl's house, where he's painting a giant paint-by number. That's what it looks like to me. And Mitch basically tells Carl about his fight with Hobie's mother, and also what Captain Thorpe told him. Now guys, I really don't like Captain Thorpe. Not just because he was a jackass in this episode, but because of the actor. I started to like the actor because he was in one of my favorite movies, Airport 77. Ask your parents, kids. Or your grandparents, more importantly. He also was in 2 cult classic episodes of The Golden Girls, where he played Blanche's gay brother Clayton, who comes out to her in the first episode, and then in the second appearance is getting married to a man named Doug. And he has one of the most classic lines in Golden Girls in sitcom history. "I'd do anything for Doug, and he'd bend over backwards for me." I love that line, and I can't believe it got past the censors. But he played a role of a father on Melrose Place. And if you love Melrose Place as much as I do, you should check out this podcast called the Melrose Place Podcast, where they rewatch, recap, and analyze every episode of that hit show that we all know and love, Melrose Place. But he played Allison Parker's father on that show, and if you want to know more, you can check out the episodes where they basically explain it to you better than I can. But let's just say he's not like Danny Tanner, and he's not like Cliff Huxtable, or even Mitch Buchanan. He's worse. Way worse. And the way that they have him say the lines that he says made me kind of be turned off on him as an actor. So the fact that they are making him be a jackass in the pilot movie actually works for me because I don't like him. And no, Melrose Place podcast did not ask me to promote them, but I love listening to them, and I think if you love Melrose Place, you should check it out. Anyway, Carl offers to take Hobie fishing the next day because to explain how it is when parents get divorced, because he's been there before. Aww. And doesn't seem to care that he's being reduced to desk work until he's retired. We then segue to Mitch's party, which I have no idea where this party is supposed to be. I mean, this is a weird 80s party, and they're supposed to also be saving the Bay, which there ain't saving no Bay. Eddie has come to the party, and the only thing he's doing is swimming back and forth. And for some odd reason, Shawnee is standing there watching him swim back and forth. And her friends, who we never see again, go, "Oh my god, I can't believe that she's been standing there for like an hour watching him swim back and forth. Oh my god, like I know. It's like she's been in that one spot. She hasn't even like moved. I bet her legs are so stuck in one spot." I kid you not, that is like the dialogue. So, and in Valley Girl fashion, because we're in California, we're in Los Angeles. So, later on, Shawnee goes to Eddie, and she was unable to save the girl and had a nice heart-to-heart with Jill, where Jill basically tells her it's okay and that it happens on their first save and that it's no big deal. Yeah, I'm wondering how she became a lifeguard. How Shawnee became a lifeguard, I really don't know. She begins talking to Eddie, and Eddie goes, she goes, "How was your day?" And he goes, "It was fine." He goes, "How was yours?" "Oh wait, I heard that you didn't save that girl." She was like, "It wasn't my fault, I just kind of froze up." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I don't understand why just because we work together doesn't mean we have to be a family. I don't want another family." Okay. Why are you being so mean to her? She's just trying to be nice, dude. Jeez. And he just randomly leaves. So Lori gets a flyer to come to Mitch's party and decides to follow Craig's wife Gina into the bathroom and tell her how she had sex with a lifeguard. Gina's wheels are turning in her brain, but she's hoping beyond hope that it's not who she thinks. Lori then points out the lifeguard she had sex with and says it's Craig. Even though we as the audience know it's a lie, Craig tries to tell her, and there's this big huge scene that interrupts the party. And they leave. Craig is able to explain to his wife that it's just survivor's remorse and that she made it all up. And they live in a weird house with an open floor plan. It's like, I don't even know if anyone would actually live in this house. And there's this weird statue with piercing eyes that's on the bed behind them when they're talking. And it's like looking at them. And it's so creepy. It looks like Craig's eyes. It looks like Deathglare's eyes. Ah! So in the midst of this, Lori ends up calling because I guess she got his name out of the phone book. And she tells him that if he doesn't come to the tower, to his tower, that she's going to kill herself. So him and Gina head there. Basically, she tells them that she fought with her father because she has bruises on her neck and that he molested her. Instead of doing the sensible thing, calling children's services, calling the cops, anything of that nature, Craig says, well, tonight you can stay with me and Gina. Craig then goes to Lori's house, where he got her address at the beginning of the episode, and runs into her mother, played by Virginia Cartwright, who you may know from such classic films as Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, Alien, and Witches of Eastwick. A fantastic, underrated actress that's been acting for a long time and deserves far better than this guest spot. She basically explains to Craig that Lori's father has been dead for 10 years and she just got back home from a mental hospital and makes things up and always hurts herself to draw attention to herself. So Craig now realizes that Lori is crazy. Dun dun dun! So meanwhile, after having some sort of weird montage where we flash back to the various things in the episode with Craig and Gina, Lori decides to kill Gina because if Gina's out of the way, she can have Craig. That rhymed and I did not mean it to. Anyway, she tells Gina that her therapist told her that she should write a note and then burn it and throw it on the ocean and put its ashes in the sand. She convinces Gina to help her with this, and although Gina's reluctant, it works, and they go to the pier. Even though Gina is hesitant to go through a hole in a fence to go through the pier, Lori basically throws a bratty fit, and basically the rest of her plan depends on Gina just feeling bad and running after her. And that's exactly what she does. Eventually, Gina reads the note and finds out that it's a suicide note, making people think that Gina killed herself because Craig's in love with Lori. When she discovers this, Lori basically stabs her wrist and then chases her around on the pier. And this is what the title refers to, Panic at Malibu Pier. Craig comes to the rescue and saves Gina and ends up talking Lori out of hurting his wife. And I guess she goes to the mental hospital because it's never seen nor mentioned again over the course of the show as far as I know. But we still have a few minutes left. Hoagie and Carl are on a boat fishing, but they never get the chance to talk about what it's like for your parents to be divorced because they catch really big fish, take a picture together holding it, and give it to the man so he can cook it for lunch, which I guess this is a lunch boat because there are several tables around. Hobie tells two random extras that Carl is a lifeguard, and the woman says, if he's the lifeguard, I'm the Queen of England. They don't believe him and they laugh it off. For some reason, down in the kitchen, the guy can't light the stove right away, so he decides to open a thing of propane gas to get the stove going, and then decides to try to light the stove again, not knowing that there's a hole in the tank. When he does, the whole boat explodes, sending several people into the water. The boat explodes 3 different times for reasons I don't understand, and half of the boat capsizes, with Hobie and the 2 random extras at the bottom of it. Everyone is called in, and Shawnee says, I forget everything we ever learned. And Eddie says, don't worry, you'll remember when you hit the water. Seriously? How did she become a lifeguard again, people? Really? I wouldn't want her saving me. Anyway, they saved the random people that was on the boat from the water. They used the same shot of Michael Newman, who's a real lifeguard in real life, take one guy out 3 different times out of the water. Eventually they find that there is an air pocket, and Carl's able to save the 2 random extras in Hobie too. But unfortunately, he gets stuck in a net and drowns, thus ending him. And I kind of liked him as a character. He was just about to retire, and he was helping Mitch with Hobie. Why? They have a little mini funeral where Mitch says that the sea was Carl's mistress, and he was at peace when he went. No he wasn't. He was drowning, Mitch. He wasn't at peace. He was choking on water, and he was dying. that is not at peace, and then we have one final montage to basically say forever and always, they're always there. Overall, the pilot movie of Baywatch is fantastic. Although there are some terrible moments and terrible subplots, like the underage sexual tension that we did not need, it's an interesting way to open a series. But if it was done today, I don't think it would have been picked up for a series, because it just seems weird. Overall, the acting is kind of interesting, and the other montages we have is just random things around the beach and Trevor checking out girls. Believe me, there are more montages, more hilarious plot points to come. So strap in and go on with me on this journey through the crazy world that is Baywatch. I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed talking about it. And I've already watched the second episode, so we'll have a double episode released today. I hope to release one every week, but don't hold me on that. I've never seen any episode of Baywatch. It was always the show that my friends made fun of because of the montages. There were several references to it on Friends, and I never actually got to see it. By the time I'd heard about it, or understood it, it was already off the air. But I look forward to watching all the episodes, and if I missed anything, feel free to check out Movie Nights to see Baywatching, because she does a far better job and has hilarious voices for the characters. Thanks for watching, and forever and always, I'm always here. Thank you. Do-do-do. This video has been narrated, edited, and sung by DJ Craig. Thanks for watching, and please share with your friends and put a like button so that I know that you want me to continue this series.